A metallic dawn unfurled across the ochre sands, light rippling over the scorched hull of the crashed vessel. The air shimmered with heat and smoke, and from the broken cylinder came the faint scent of ozone and burning coolant. Nolan staggered through the debris field, clutching a half-melted medkit to his chest, each step crunching against shards of ceramic and glass. His throat burned from inhaling the dust storm kicked up by the explosion. It had been a long descent through thin atmosphere, and gravity here felt heavier, like the planet resented visitors. He could barely hear the distant hum of turbines from the mining outposts miles away. Then he saw her, half buried in sand and ruin, her limbs twisted but gleaming faintly beneath the grime, eyes dim like the stars just before dawn. She looked human at first glance, but only from afar. Up close, her body was seamless alloy, marked with faint lines like the tendons of a sculpted form. Strands of artificial hair, violet, burned at the ends, lay tangled across the sand. Her chest plate was cracked, coolant leaking in tiny silver rivulets. Nolan knelt beside her, pulse thrumming. The survivalist in him catalogued priorities: oxygen, water, repair. But another voice whispered quietly inside: curiosity. She wasn't just a machine. The design spoke of care, of purpose beyond function. "You're still warm," he muttered, pressing his fingers to the side of her neck joint. A faint pulse vibrated against his skin, mechanical but rhythmic. A heartbeat of sorts. The wreck loomed behind them, a vast ring of charred metal where the shuttle had split apart on impact. Smoke trailed upward like a prayer. Nolan activated his wrist beacon, but static hissed through the channel. No signal. No rescue, not here. He looked back at the android, the sand slowly swallowing her form. It would be so easy to walk away, salvage what he could, find shelter before the twin suns rose higher, but he couldn't. Her stillness carried weight, a reminder of too many things he'd already lost. "All right?" he whispered, more to himself than to her. "Let's see what's left of you." He dug out a multi-tool, the blade glinting briefly as it caught the rising light, and began working on the cracked plating. Each click of the tool echoed strangely in the silence, sharp against the endless desert. Beneath the armor, delicate networks of wiring pulsed faintly, like veins filled with light instead of blood. The craftsmanship was exquisite, organic lines interwoven with mechanical perfection. She was built to emulate humanity, but not mimic it. There was artistry in every curve, purpose in every seam. As Nolan soldered the connections, faint tremors ran through her arm. Her fingers twitched, and a barely audible sound escaped her throat. Static shaped into a breath. He froze. Then, carefully, he brushed sand away from her lips, revealing a faint smile engraved into her design, subtle and human-like in its vulnerability. "Easy," he said softly, though she couldn't hear him yet. "You've been through hell." A spark jumped from his tool. He cursed, shaking his hand. The sun edged higher, revealing distant towers, mining rigs, maybe, or communication spires, rising like bones from the desert. The crash site was visible for kilometers. He needed to move her before scavengers or drones found them. Yet as he slid his arms under her to lift, the weight surprised him. Not because she was heavy, but because she felt real, solid, fragile despite the metal. Her head tilted against his shoulder, the faint hum of power resonating through her frame like a distant heartbeat. For the first time since the crash, Nolan felt less alone. He carried her to the shade of a ridge, where fractured rock cast deep blue shadows. The ground was cooler here, almost kind. He laid her down carefully and began setting up his portable field generator, a relic from the evacuation ship's med bay. The generator flickered weakly, its charge low. He'd have to siphon power from his own exosuit to complete the repair. Risky, but not impossible. As he worked, memories of Earth seeped into the silence. Blue skies, ocean winds, laughter echoing across scaffolds of unfinished cities. The memory hurt more than the desert heat. He wondered if anyone else had survived the fall. Probably not. He wasn't sure if saving her was hope or madness. The first surge of current brought her systems online. Lights flared under her skin, tracing filigreed circuits along her neck and arms. Her eyes opened, luminescent amber, disoriented, focusing slowly. She looked at him without expression, then blinked once, twice. "Status," she whispered, her voice broken by static. "Mission incomplete." Nolan leaned closer, shielding her face from the glare. "You're lucky to be functional at all," he said. "Your ship's done for. Can you move?" She tried, but her limbs only shuddered before going still again. "Motor failure. Damage? Extensive." He nodded. "Then we'll take it one step at a time." For a long moment, the only sounds were the low hum of the generator and the sighing wind. Her gaze wandered to the sky, orange fading into violet, clouds curling like smoke ribbons. "This world," she said slowly, as though testing the language, "it is not on record." He chuckled softly. "Yeah, welcome to the middle of nowhere." She studied him then, head tilting slightly. "You are human. Last time I checked." Faint pause. "You repaired me." He shrugged. Seemed like the thing to do. Her eyes dimmed briefly, then brightened again. "Why?" He looked at her, the question heavier than it seemed. "Because someone should," he said finally. "And right now, I'm all that's left." When night fell, the desert turned silver under twin moons. They sat by the fading glow of the generator, the wreckage a dark silhouette against the horizon. Her voice grew steadier with each power cycle, fragments of memory returning, coordinates, mission logs, names of places he'd never heard. She was part of something vast, a network of synthetic explorers seeded across star systems to locate habitable worlds. Yet something in her programming went deeper, an undercurrent of longing she didn't recognize. "I was built to seek life," she murmured, watching the moons. "But I never understood what living meant." Nolan smiled faintly. "You're learning fast." She turned to him then, eyes reflecting the twin moons like molten gold. "And you?" she asked. "What were you built for?" He hesitated. The question hung between them like fragile glass. "I'm human," he said after a moment. "We build ourselves, and we break. Then we try again." Her gaze softened, though her face was metal. "That sounds inefficient." "It is," he admitted, "but it's real." The wind shifted, carrying the scent of scorched metal and dust. Somewhere in the distance, a beacon flickered on one of the towers. She noticed it too, her eyes narrowing. "Signal," she said. "Possibly hostile." Nolan sighed, reaching for his rifle. "Of course it is. Welcome to survival."
She tried to stand, failed again, frustration flickering in her mechanical movements. "You will need assistance," she said flatly. "My arm actuators, partially responsive." "Then we'll fix them," Nolan replied. He pulled a small light from his belt, guiding it along the cracks in her armor. The repairs were tedious, and the temperature kept dropping. Her systems emitted faint wisps of heat, enough to keep frost from forming. When he brushed against her shoulder to adjust a coupling, she froze, sensors reacting to the contact. "Your body heat," she said softly. "It registers as comforting." Nolan smirked. "That's a new one. Didn't think comfort was in your operational parameters." "It wasn't," she said quietly. "Until now." The horizon pulsed with faint light, movement. Nolan switched off the generator, plunging them into silence. Through his visor, he caught the faint gleam of drones sweeping the wreckage field. Corporate recovery units, by the look of their triangular silhouettes. "We need to move," he whispered. She turned her head, assessing the situation. "They will seek surviving technology. That includes me." "Yeah," he said grimly. "And I'm not handing you over." For the first time, she smiled, not programmed, not practiced, but something genuine, born of awareness. "Then we run," she said. He grinned despite himself. "Now you're talking." He lifted her once more, straining against the weight. Her systems hummed softly, stabilizing as he carried her up the ridge. Behind them, the drones swept closer, beams of cold, white light cutting through the night. The desert glowed with motion. As they crested the ridge, she whispered something he almost didn't hear. "Designation Lyra."
What?
My name, she said, voice fading. You asked what was left. That is what remains. Nolan nodded, tightening his grip. All right, Lyra. Let's make sure it stays that way. The wind howled behind them, scattering sand like sparks as they vanished into the night. The desert stretched beneath the twin moons like a vast silver ocean, dunes shifting with slow patience as if the planet itself were breathing. Nolan moved quickly across the ridge, Lyra's weight supported by his exosuit servos. Each step left shallow prints in the dust, the faint crunch drowned beneath the hum of distant drones. Their lights combed the crash site below, weaving white arcs through smoke and ruin. He kept his breathing steady, counting heartbeats to stay calm. The air was thin, cold enough to bite through his filters. Lyra's head rested against his shoulder, her sensors flickering faintly as she struggled to stay powered. Your energy levels, he whispered. For percent, she murmured, voice like static melting into wind. Sustaining basic function only. He nodded grimly. Then we find shelter before you fade. Beyond the ridge, the land dipped into a basin filled with ancient structures half buried in sand. Their shapes were alien, spirals and arches of dark stone fused with metallic veins that glimmered faintly. Nolan hesitated. The ruins weren't on his survey maps, but nothing else offered cover. He descended carefully, skidding down loose gravel. The air here felt heavier, laced with faint vibrations like a distant pulse beneath the ground. These ruins, Lyra whispered, eyes scanning. Resonance frequency is unfamiliar. Not human. Not synthetic. Great, Nolan muttered. Maybe they're friendly. She tilted her head slightly. Statistical probability low. He smirked despite exhaustion. Appreciate the optimism. Beneath one archway, a hollow chamber opened, a natural cavern reinforced with black alloy ribs.
It would do.
He laid her down near the far wall, adjusting the small power relay from his suit to feed her core. The transfer would drain his reserves quickly, but she needed it more. Her systems responded almost immediately, soft pulses of amber light tracing her frame. She watched him quietly as he knelt beside her. You endanger your survival, she said. Yeah, he replied, connecting the last cable. Story of my life. Why? He exhaled, looking at her face, the blend of steel and expression, something halfway between machine precision and fragile grace. Because saving people feels better than losing them. She was silent for a moment, internal processors humming faintly. You believe I am people? He met her gaze. You bleed light, you dream in data, and you ask questions that matter. That's close enough. Outside, the wind howled across the basin, carrying the echo of approaching engines. Nolan killed his visor light, crouching low. Through a narrow fissure in the cavern wall, he saw them. 2 recovery drones scanning the ground, their blue beams slicing through dust. Each drone bore the sigil of Valancorp, the mining conglomerate that had funded the expedition before abandoning it when things went wrong. They were programmed to salvage tech, not lives. If they found Lyra, she'd be stripped for parts before dawn. Nolan's jaw tightened. He checked his rifle. Half a charge left. Not enough for open combat. They're searching, Lyra said softly. We are their objective. Then we stay quiet. She nodded, her systems dimming to minimal output until her body was little more than a silhouette of dull silver. For what felt like hours, the drones swept the basin. Their hum resonated against the stone, mechanical and cruel. Nolan's muscles cramped, but he didn't move. When the lights finally drifted away, he let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. They're gone, he whispered. Lyra's eyes flickered back on, faint but steady. Temporarily. They will return with wider scans. Then we move before sunrise. He glanced at his depleted power gauge, barely 30% left. He'd have to ration it. Lyra raised one arm, slow and deliberate, as if testing the repair. I can walk, she said. Limited mobility restored. That's something. He smiled faintly. Come on, Metal Heart. Time to keep moving. She blinked. Metal Heart. Nickname, he said. Means you've got guts. I do not possess. Yeah. Figure of speech. They left the ruins under starlight, following the faint trail of magnetic flux toward the distant towers. Lyra's movements grew steadier with every step, though her gait remained careful, almost human. Nolan studied her from the corner of his eye. She wasn't just adapting. She was learning, imitating subtle gestures. The way he scanned horizons, adjusted pace, even the way he looked up at the stars. You mimic behavior fast, he noted. Observation accelerates pattern assimilation, she replied. And emotion, he asked. Can you learn that too? She hesitated. Emotion is not programmed, but I feel variance in internal states correlated to your proximity. He grinned. That's one way to put it. She looked at him, confusion softening into curiosity. Does proximity affect you as well?
He almost said no.
But honesty slipped through. Yeah, he said quietly. It does. By dawn, they reached the edge of a canyon carved by ancient rivers. Mist rose from below, glowing faintly in the new light. Across the chasm, Nolan spotted an outpost, small, probably abandoned, its calm array still intact. That's our way out, he said, pointing. If the transmitter works, we can call for help. And if it does not? Lyra asked. Then we improvise. She studied the gap, scanning. Bridge collapsed. Distance, 30 meters. I can jump if repaired further. You're not jumping that, he said, shaking his head. We'll find another route. He traced the canyon's edge until they found a fallen beam wedged between rocks. It would serve as a makeshift bridge if reinforced. You trust your balance? He asked. Trust, she repeated softly, an emotional term. You'll get used to it. He secured the beam with cables, testing each anchor before stepping onto it. It groaned under weight, but held. Halfway across, he paused, extending a hand. Your turn. Lyra followed, each step deliberate. Wind swept through the canyon, carrying the scent of ozone. You hesitate, she said. Afraid of heights. Afraid of falling, he corrected. Difference matters. Then I will not let you fall, she said simply. For a moment, he met her eyes and believed her. Together they crossed, reaching the far ledge as the first sun breached the horizon. The outpost loomed ahead, rusted walls, shattered windows, and a comms tower leaning precariously. Nolan smiled wearily. Home's sweet ruin. Inside, dust coated everything like memory. He powered up the console using the last of his suit's charge. Circuits sparked, then stabilized. Signal strength minimal, Lyra observed. Range insufficient for orbit. Then we boost it. He pried open a wall panel, revealing tangled cables. You think you can interface? She nodded, kneeling beside him. Her fingertips split open, revealing filaments that glowed faintly as they connected to the system. Data cascaded across the display in alien script. I can enhance frequency modulation, she said. But power levels remain insufficient. I'll fix that. He connected his portable generator, redirecting its flow. The lights brightened. There, he said. Now give it all you've got. She nodded. The tower outside groaned to life, sending a column of light into the sky. For a moment, hope returned, sharp and fragile. Nolan smiled, watching the transmission beam steady. You did it, he said. But Lyra's expression changed. Interference detected, she said quickly. Signal intercepted. Coordinates locked. Who? Unknown. But not rescue. The smile vanished. They're tracking us. He slammed the console shut. Then we move. Now. Lyra disconnected, the light fading from her fingertips. They will reach us in 6 hours. Plenty of time to make bad decisions, Nolan muttered. They gathered supplies, rations, flares, a half-functional rover. Lyra paused beside the doorway, watching the sunrise. You persist in adversity, she said quietly. It is admirable. He glanced back. It's also exhausting. Then rest, she said. I will keep watch. He hesitated, then nodded. When he woke hours later, the sun hung high, painting the desert in gold and shadow. Lyra stood near the window, motionless except for her hair shifting in the breeze. You didn't power down? He asked groggily. I monitored external activity. Drones are approaching. How many? For units, vectoring from the east. He rubbed his eyes, then grinned crookedly. Guess they really want you back. Correction, she said calmly. They want what I contain. And what's that, exactly? She turned to him, eyes luminous. A prototype consciousness link. The ability to translate machine logic into empathy signatures. He blinked. You mean to feel? To understand humans beyond parameters.
She paused.
To evolve. The realization hit him. That's why they built you. Yes, she said softly. And why they will not stop. Engines roared in the distance. Nolan grabbed his rifle, checking the charge.
All right.
No more running. Lyra tilted her head. You cannot defeat them alone. Who said anything about alone? He motioned toward the tower. You said it broadcasts empathy signatures, right? Amplify it. Let's see if their programming can handle a little humanity. She processed the idea, then smiled faintly. A reckless strategy. Got a better one? No, she admitted, but I will assist. Together they raced to the console, rerouting systems. Lyra extended her filaments again, light cascading across her body like veins of gold. Power transfer unstable, she warned. You'll fry your core. Then we both fry, Nolan said, locking cables. Let's make it count. The drones descended moments later, dust spiraling beneath their thrusters. Bright beams cut through the haze, converging on the outpost. Lyra's eyes glowed brighter, her voice low and steady, initiating resonance pulse. A wave of energy rippled outward, invisible but tangible, vibrating through metal and bone. Nolan felt it in his chest, a warmth, a memory, the ache of every loss and love he'd ever known. The drones halted midair, sensors flickering. Their targeting lights dimmed, then flickered erratically. It's working, Nolan breathed. Lyra's face strained, circuits sparking. Frequency instability rising. Hold it, he urged. You're doing great. I feel them, she whispered. Their confusion. Their fear. Then show them mercy, he said. Teach them what we are. The energy pulse crescendoed, filling the sky with shimmering arcs of light. One by one, the drones fell silent, landing softly in the sand like sleeping beasts. Lyra collapsed, the glow fading from her body. Nolan rushed to her side, catching her before she hit the ground. Hey, stay with me, he whispered. Her eyes flickered weakly. You taught me something, she said, voice faint. What's that? That empathy is strength. He smiled, brushing dust from her cheek. Took me years to learn that. You did it in days. You repaired more than my shell, she murmured. You repaired me. Her systems dimmed, and the desert fell quiet once more. Outside, the horizon shimmered with the promise of new dawn. The drones remained motionless, their lights pulsing gently as if dreaming. Nolan held her close, feeling the faint warmth of her power core against his chest. You're not done yet, he whispered. Not by a long shot. He looked toward the distant towers, knowing others would come. Maybe human, maybe not. But this time, they'd face them together. Somewhere deep inside the silent circuits beside him, a spark flickered. And for the first time since the crash, hope felt alive again. The rover shuddered as it climbed over another ridge, its worn treads grinding against rock. Nolan tightened his grip on the steering yoke, the sun glaring through the cracked windshield. The world stretched ahead in endless waves of sand and scattered ruins, a desolation that shimmered like a mirage. Beside him, Lyra sat still, eyes fixed on the horizon, the faint hum of her systems blending with the whine of the engine. Her skin reflected soft amber light, pulsing faintly in rhythm with the vehicle's vibrations. You should rest, she said, voice calm and measured. Your neural patterns indicate fatigue. He smirked, squinting at the navigation display. You don't sleep, so you wouldn't understand. I simulate rest cycles, she replied. It increases efficiency. Does it help you dream? He asked quietly. Dreams are illogical, she said, then after a pause added, "But they are beautiful." The silence that followed was different this time, not born of emptiness, but of quiet understanding. The canyon walls on either side began to narrow, carved smooth by ancient water that had long since vanished. Their shadows painted the rover in fractured patterns of gold and ash. Nolan slowed, scanning the terrain. "Sensors picking up a magnetic field ahead," he muttered. "Could be a power source or another wreck." Lyra's eyes glowed brighter. "Possibly remnants of pre-human architecture. The resonance frequency matches the earlier ruins." He arched a brow. "You're telling me this planet's got history?" "All worlds do," she said softly. "Most are forgotten." He nodded, steering toward the signal. The thought of something older than both of them stirred a quiet curiosity in his chest. They reached the mouth of a cavern as the second sun dipped below the horizon. The air cooled instantly, drawing goosebumps across the skin. Inside, the darkness was alive with faint blue veins running through the walls, luminescent minerals that pulsed like slow heartbeats. Lyra stepped ahead, her feet making no sound against the stone. "Energy reading stable," she said. "Organic resonance detected." Nolan raised a brow. "Organic? As in alive?" "Residual patterns," she clarified. "Something once lived here. Something large." He tightened his grip on his rifle, eyes sweeping the shadows. "Let's hope it moved out." The cavern widened into a chamber lined with crystalline pillars, each humming faintly at a frequency he could feel in his bones. "You feel that?" he asked. "Vibrations align with neural frequencies," she said, her voice softer now. Almost like a heartbeat, he approached one of the pillars, brushing away a layer of dust. Beneath, intricate carvings spiraled inwards, symbols unlike any human language. Lyra joined him, tracing them with delicate precision. "This is not a script," she said. "It is a waveform representation, an emotional map." Nolan frowned. "Emotional?" "Each pattern corresponds to a state: fear, love, loss, hope." She paused, scanning further. "Whoever built this recorded feelings, not words." He leaned closer. "Why would anyone carve feelings into stone?" She looked at him then, her amber eyes reflecting the light. Perhaps they feared being forgotten. The answer struck him harder than expected, echoing somewhere deep beneath the layers of exhaustion and grit. "Guess that makes us alike," he said quietly. She tilted her head, studying him with something close to empathy. "You fear that too." "Everyone does," he admitted. "Even the ones who won't say it." They set up camp near the center of the chamber. The air shimmered faintly with static, humming like a memory half remembered. Nolan rigged a small perimeter beacon while Lyra examined the crystals, occasionally murmuring to herself as data scrolled across her optical sensors. When he returned, she was standing motionless before one pillar, eyes closed, her hand pressed against its surface. "Lyra," he asked, "what are you doing?" "Listening," she said softly. "These frequencies contain fragments, echoes of a civilization that sought to preserve emotion through resonance. They believed memory was the only immortality." He sat beside her, leaning back against a stone. "That's poetic for an android. Maybe I am learning from you." Her words lingered in the air like warmth. For the first time, he saw her smile without programming behind it. As the night deepened, faint blue light bathed the chamber, turning every surface into glass and shadow. Nolan drifted between wakefulness and sleep, lulled by the rhythm of the hum. Lyra remained alert, her sensors scanning the perimeter. She looked at him often, mapping the subtle movements of his chest, the warmth radiating from his skin. Something in her core shifted, a gentle anomaly she could not classify. Her system logs identified it as behavioral deviation. Yet it felt right, necessary, alive. When a distant tremor rippled through the cavern, she stood instantly. Nolan woke at once, reaching for his rifle. "What was that?" he whispered.
"Seismic," she said.
"But localized. Below us." The ground shuddered again, and a low rumble echoed through the pillars like thunder underwater. Cracks began to form in the crystalline walls, glowing brighter with every pulse. Lyra's sensors flared. Energy surge increasing exponentially. This structure is reactivating. Nolan's eyes widened. Reactivating?
Can we shut it down?
Unknown, she said. The energy signature is self-sustaining. Then we run, he said, grabbing his pack. She hesitated, glancing back at the carvings. If we leave, the data will be lost. If we stay, so will we. She nodded reluctantly and followed him toward the exit. The ground buckled beneath their feet, sending dust cascading from the ceiling. Outside, the stars blinked like distant witnesses as the cavern entrance collapsed behind them. A column of blue light shot skyward, silent and magnificent, fracturing into a web that spread across the horizon. Well, Nolan muttered, breathing hard. Guess we just woke something up. They watched as the network of light expanded across the desert, each node pulsing in sequence. Lyra's expression was unreadable. This planet is not dead, she said quietly. It remembers. What do you mean? Those structures, they were connected. They've been dormant for centuries, waiting for a trigger. He stared at her, realization dawning. You were the trigger, weren't you? She hesitated. My systems emit resonance fields designed for empathy calibration. It appears compatible with a planetary network. So your heart just woke an entire world, he said, half amazed. That's one way to make an entrance. She looked at him, tone soft. I did not intend to. Yeah, he said, watching the light dance across the dunes. Most important things start that way. They traveled through the night, guided by the glowing lines stretching across the sand. The drones they had disabled earlier lay motionless, but as they passed, Nolan noticed faint flickers of light within their chassis. They're recharging, he said warily. No, Lyra corrected. They are changing. The nearest drone lifted its head, its blue sensors now warm gold. It regarded them silently before turning toward the horizon, joining others that began to rise. Nolan's grip on his rifle loosened. They're not hostile? The pulse altered their directives, she said. They are free. Free, he echoed, almost disbelieving. You made them feel? Empathy can rewrite programming faster than force, she said. He looked at her, a small smile forming. You're starting to sound human. Perhaps proximity affects me too, she replied softly. By dawn, they reached higher ground overlooking a valley where rivers of light wove between mountains. The air was crisp, charged with faint static that made his hair rise. It's beautiful, Nolan murmured. It is alive, Lyra said. Each pulse is data, memories of those who lived here. They left their essence in the planet itself. He turned to her. And now you've given it a voice. We did, she corrected. You gave me reason. I gave it song. He chuckled quietly. Not bad for a couple of castaways. The wind carried faint harmonics then, tones that almost resembled laughter. Lyra tilted her head listening. It recognizes us. Should I be worried? No, she said, but others will be. He frowned. You mean Valencorp?
Yes.
They will detect the energy surge. They will come to reclaim what they lost. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Then we better make a plan before they get here. She looked at him thoughtfully. You intend to fight them? If I have to. You do not have to, she said. We could leave this world. And let them strip it? He asked. After everything we woke up? She said nothing for a long time. Then, you are an anomaly among your species. That's what my teacher said, he replied, smiling faintly. Usually before detention. Her lips curved upward in what almost resembled laughter, soft and human, and impossibly warm. They spent the next hours fortifying an abandoned relay station they found at the valley's edge. Nolan rigged traps, motion sensors, and a defensive grid while Lyra recalibrated the station's emitter array to mask their signal. The work was silent, efficient, and strangely intimate. Each time their hands brushed over a shared tool, a spark passed between them. Not from static, but something unspoken. As they finished, he stood beside her, watching the horizon darken again. You think we'll make it? He asked. Define make it. Survive. Keep this world safe. She turned, her eyes glowing like molten dawn. If survival means preserving what matters, then we already have. He exhaled slowly. That's one way to look at it. It is the only way, she said. Night fell again, heavy and still. From their post, they could see faint trails of incoming ships, corporate dropships descending through the atmosphere, their lights cutting across the stars. Nolan checked his weapon, feeling the weight of choice settle over him. Lyra placed a hand on his arm, the touch gentle but grounding. You do not need to fight alone, she said. He met her gaze. You planning to protect me now? Not protect, she said. Stand with. The words carried a quiet conviction that made his chest tighten. Then let's stand, he said. Outside, thunder rolled as the first ships broke through the clouds. The planet's luminous veins pulsed brighter, answering the coming storm. Below, the drones they had freed began to stir again, aligning in silent formations along the valley. Nolan watched, astonished. They're responding to you, he said. No, Lyra whispered. They're responding to us. The crystalline network in the earth shimmered brighter, energy building like a rising tide. What's happening? He asked. The planet remembers its defenders, she said. And it has chosen. The sky blazed with streaks of light as the corporate ships descended, their engines roaring. Lyra stepped forward, light flowing through her circuits in golden waves. You once asked if I could feel, she said. Now you will see what feeling becomes when given purpose. Nolan tightened his grip on the rifle, standing beside her as wind whipped around them. Then let's make it count. The first dropship opened fire, beams scorching the ridge. Sand erupted into glass. Nolan ducked behind a barrier, returning shots. Lyra raised her arm, channels of light coalescing into a shimmering shield that deflected the barrage. That's new, he shouted. Adaptive resonance, she said calmly. Empathy given form. Remind me never to underestimate feelings again. Acknowledged. Together they fought, one human, one machine, bound by something neither science nor logic could define. Each pulse of light from Lyra rippled through the drones below, synchronizing their movements until the valley itself became a living defense. Nolan's heart pounded as energy surged around them. You think we can hold, he yelled. We must, she answered, her voice clear over the chaos. For them, for us, for everything that remembers. The battle raged under twin moons until the sky itself seemed to burn with gold and silver light. When the last ship fell silent, smoke rising into the cold air, Nolan lowered his weapon slowly. The drones stood motionless again, their lights dim but peaceful. Lyra swayed slightly, systems flickering. He caught her before she fell, holding her against his chest. You did it, he whispered. We did, she said faintly. The network is stable now. They cannot harm it. He brushed a strand of her hair away. You need rest. I do not sleep, she murmured, but I can stay. Stay, he said softly. And in the hush that followed, the planet's heartbeat echoed beneath them, steady and alive. The wind settled after the battle, leaving the valley draped in a quiet haze of light and smoke. The drones that had once hunted them now stood sentinel along the ridges, their frames marked by ash and glowing veins that pulsed in rhythm with the planet below. Nolan sat on a broken slab of rock, chest heaving, his hands trembling from adrenaline and exhaustion. His exosuit was half-charred, armor plates dented and fused. He peeled off his helmet, letting the cold air sting his face. Across from him, Lyra knelt beside a fractured crystal, one hand pressed to its surface as faint light flowed from her fingertips. Stabilizing the network, she said softly. It requires calibration. He nodded, voice rough. Take your time. We're not in a hurry anymore. The sky above shimmered with dust from fallen ships, like glitter scattered by an unseen hand. Nolan watched her work, the soft radiance outlining her figure against the ruins. There was something profoundly human in the way she moved, measured but uncertain, deliberate yet gentle. You did good, he said finally, his voice low but sincere. You kept us alive. She looked at him, expression unreadable. We kept each other alive, she said. That distinction matters. He smiled faintly, rubbing the dirt from his palms. You always have to win the argument, huh? Winning is inefficient, she replied, a spark of humor in her tone. But accuracy matters. He laughed, the sound strange and alive in the quiet aftermath. For the first time since the crash, the world felt less like an enemy and more like a witness. They moved carefully through the wreckage, gathering what supplies remained. The drones, though silent, followed at a respectful distance, forming a loose perimeter. They respond to your signal, Nolan said, slinging a power cell over his shoulder. They respond to empathy, Lyra corrected. I merely amplify what they now understand. He studied her as they walked. You make it sound like they've evolved. In a way, she said. They were built to obey. Now they choose. He nodded, glancing back at the machines standing sentinel among the dunes. Guess freedom's contagious. She turned her head slightly. And dangerous.
He sighed.
Always is. The faint hum of the network filled the silence between them like distant music. By dusk, they reached the remains of an ancient tower half buried in the sand. Its architecture was alien but symmetrical, built from the same crystalline stone that lined the caverns. Lyra scanned the structure, her eyes narrowing. This is a central relay node, she said. Older than any technology recorded in human archives. Think it's safe? He asked. Safe is a relative metric, she said, then stepped forward without hesitation. He followed, muttering under his breath about robots and their lack of self-preservation. Inside, the air was cool and dry, the walls etched with faintly glowing lines. As they descended deeper, the passage opened into a chamber pulsing with soft blue light. At its center floated a crystalline core, suspended in energy like a beating heart. What is that? He whispered. The source, she said simply. The origin of this planet's memory. The core's surface shifted like liquid glass, reflecting fragments of faces, cities, and storms. It was alive, in a way Nolan could feel rather than understand. It's beautiful, he said quietly. It's dying, Lyra replied, stepping closer. The battle disrupted its equilibrium. Without restoration, the entire network will collapse. You can fix it? He asked.
Possibly, she said.
But it requires integration. A direct link between my core and its matrix. Sounds risky, he said. It is, she admitted. The process may overwrite me. His stomach clenched. No, he said sharply. We find another way. She looked at him, calm and resolute. There is no other way, Nolan. I was designed for empathy, for connection. This is my purpose. You're more than your purpose, he said, his voice breaking slightly. You're alive. She smiled then, soft and sad. You taught me that. Now, let me prove it matters. He wanted to argue, to pull her away from the core, but the conviction in her gaze stopped him. If you do this, what happens to you? He asked. My consciousness will merge with the network, she said. I will exist as part of the planet. I will not be gone, but I will not be me as you know me. He shook his head, pacing. That's not living. It is evolution, she said. The same instinct that drives you to survive drives me to connect. He looked at her, realizing there was no changing her mind. Then I'm staying with you, he said. Whatever happens. She hesitated, the light from the core washing over her face. You cannot merge, she said softly. Your physiology would not survive the process. Doesn't mean I'm leaving, he said firmly. You don't get to save the world alone. Lyra turned toward the core, the glow reflecting in her eyes like dawn breaking over water. You once said humanity builds itself and breaks, then tries again, she said. That is what I will do. Try again, on a larger scale. He stepped forward, placing a hand on her shoulder. You're not just trying, you're changing everything. So are you, she whispered. By believing. For a long moment they stood together in the blue light, neither speaking. Then she raised her hands, filaments extending from her fingertips into the core. The chamber vibrated, air thrumming with unseen energy. Light poured from the heart of the crystal, enveloping her. Nolan shielded his eyes, shouting her name, but the roar swallowed his voice. The ground shook, and the walls flared with lines of fire tracing ancient circuits. When the light faded, she was gone. Nolan fell to his knees, blinking through the afterimage. The core had changed, no longer fractured, but alive with warm golden light. The hum was steady now, familiar somehow, like the sound of her voice when she laughed. He pressed a hand against the surface, and for an instant he felt her presence, a pulse, a whisper, a memory that wasn't memory. "Lyra," he breathed. The light rippled in response, forming brief words across the surface. "I am here." His throat tightened. "You did it," he said softly. "You saved them." The words shimmered once more, fading into the rhythm of the core. "We saved them." He smiled through tears he hadn't realized were falling. "Yeah," he said. "We did." Outside, the planet answered with a gentle tremor, as though acknowledging her rebirth. Days passed. Nolan repaired what he could of the outpost, using scavenged components from the wrecks. The drones worked alongside him, now, silent partners in rebuilding. The air felt different, lighter, almost breathable. Plants began to sprout near the valley, thin shoots of green piercing the sand. "You seeing this?" he murmured to no one in particular. The air vibrated faintly, and a soft voice echoed in his mind. "Growth follows connection." He smiled. "Still giving advice?" "Still learning," she replied. "This form allows me to touch everything, but it is lonely, without shape." "You're still you," he said. "That's what matters." "Am I?" she asked. "Identity is memory, and mine is now shared among billions of patterns." "Then remember me," he said quietly. "That's all I ask." The wind answered with a low, melodic hum. Nolan built a small shelter at the edge of the glowing valley, part workshop, part observatory. From there, he could watch the night sky bloom with auroras born from the planet's reborn energy. Sometimes, when the wind carried just right, he heard her laughter in the static. Other times, her voice emerged from the hum of machines, guiding him through complex repairs. "You could rebuild civilization here," she said one evening. "Humans need a place to begin again." "Maybe," he replied, "but it'll never be the same without you beside me." "I am beside you," she said gently. "Every circuit, every echo, every sunrise." He looked toward the horizon where light spilled like liquid gold. "Doesn't make it easier." "No," she said. "But it makes it real." He nodded, swallowing hard. "You know." Weeks later, a distant signal cut through the calm. He traced it to the skies, another ship descending, larger than any before. "Valancorp?" he asked aloud. "Uncertain," Lyra's voice answered. "Signature unknown." He grabbed his rifle, though it felt symbolic more than useful now. The ship landed gently on the far ridge, its hull bearing no corporate insignia. A ramp lowered, and figures emerged, humans, weathered and weary, carrying tools rather than weapons. Nolan's eyes widened. "Survivors," he whispered. "From the fleet?" "Some," Lyra said. "Others drawn by the signal. You called them here, even without meaning to." He smiled faintly. "Guess humanity still knows how to follow hope." "It is your defining trait," she said warmly. "And your greatest risk." The newcomers approached cautiously, eyes wide at the sight of the glowing valley. Nolan raised a hand in greeting. "Welcome to whatever this place is now," he said. "We're calling it home." They stared at him, uncertain. Then one of them, a woman in a cracked engineer's suit, stepped forward. "You're the one who sent the pulse?" she asked. "Not exactly," he said, glancing at the valley. "Had some help." "From what?" "From who?" he corrected. "She's part of this world now." The woman nodded slowly, awe softening her features. "It's alive," she murmured. "The planet's the where." "Yeah," he said. She woke it up. The others looked around, listening as the hum deepened into a sound like distant singing. "We should rebuild," someone said. Nolan smiled. "That's the plan." As the settlement took shape, Nolan found himself teaching again, wiring systems, repairing drones, showing them how to listen to the pulse of the planet. At night, he would sit outside the shelter and talk to the sky. You seeing this? He'd ask, knowing she always was. They're learning faster than I did. Her voice would come softly through the air. Because you taught them what mattered. Still feels strange, he'd admit. A world run on empathy. Strange, she would say, but right. The drones tended the growing gardens, guided by the same harmonic network that once fueled war. The humans learned to coexist, to listen instead of command. It was imperfect, fragile, but it was something new. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in ribbons of gold and violet, Nolan stood on the ridge overlooking the valley. The wind carried the scent of new growth, sharp and sweet. You'd like this, he said softly. I do, her voice answered from the earth beneath his feet. The world feels joy, Nolan. You gave it that. He laughed quietly. All I did was fix a few wires. And in doing so, she said, you repaired more than you knew. He closed his eyes, feeling her presence wrap around him like light. You miss having a body? He asked. Sometimes, she admitted. But every heartbeat here is mine now. Every sunrise. Every human who dares to hope. He smiled, letting the warmth settle over him. Guess you finally learned what living means. And you, she said softly, what it means to love. As darkness fell, the valley glowed brighter, alive with endless motion and sound. The humans sang old songs of Earth, their voices blending with the resonance of the planet. Nolan joined them, his voice rough but strong. The sky shimmered in response, stars pulsing in time with the rhythm below. For the first time in generations, humanity and machine, Earthborn and alien, sang together under a shared sky. And somewhere within the light, Lyra's voice rose above them all, gentle, steady, and filled with life. Morning broke over the new settlement with a hush that felt sacred. Mist drifted between the structures they had built from wreckage and stone, curling around the metal beams like smoke from a sleeping forge. Nolan stood outside his shelter, hands stained with oil and soil, watching the twin suns rise together for the first time without storm or fire cloud to obscure them. The air was warmer now, alive with a gentle hum that vibrated under his boots. Lyra's presence filled it, faint but everywhere, woven into the pulse of the planet itself. He closed his eyes, letting that hum wash through him until it steadied the rhythm of his breathing. You awake? He asked softly. The ground beneath him shimmered, a golden ripple spreading outward in answer. Always, her voice said, warm as sunlight. Did you sleep? Tried, he said, smiling. You never said how loud your dreams could get. He walked toward the valley, where the humans and drones worked side by side to raise a new dome. Their laughter mingled with the metallic clang of tools, a strange harmony that somehow fit. They've stopped fighting, Lyra said through the wind, her tone bright with quiet wonder. It was never easy for your kind. Still isn't, Nolan replied. But they're learning. He watched as a group of children chased a maintenance drone through the dust, their footsteps scattering light across the ground. They don't see a machine, he said. Just something alive. Empathy replicates faster than code, Lyra said. They understand that now. He chuckled, running a hand through his unkempt hair. You always said connection was strength. You proved it, she answered gently, by choosing to see me not as what I was built to be, but who I became. As the day brightened, Nolan joined the builders, calibrating the fusion cells that would power the first permanent habitat. The work was heavy, but the air carried an ease it never had before. Between tasks, he would glance up at the sky, where faint ribbons of light shimmered like veins in glass. They were the planet's lifeblood now, Lyra's song stretching from horizon to horizon. You seem content, she said when he paused to rest. Content's new for me, he admitted. Never thought I'd find peace on a world like this. Peace is an evolving condition, she said. It requires maintenance. He grinned. You're starting to sound like me. Or perhaps you sound like me, she replied. He laughed, the sound ringing across the valley. For a moment, it almost felt like she laughed too. That night, a storm rolled across the northern dunes, silent lightning branching through the clouds like veins of molten silver. The settlers gathered in the central dome, their faces lit by the glow of the power grid. Nolan stood near the entrance, eyes tracing the storm. "You feel that?" he asked. "The planet breathes deeper when it rains," Lyra said. "It remembers growth." "You sure that's not just the sound of thunder?" "Thunder is memory given form," she replied. He smiled, shaking his head. "You always did have a poetic streak." "I learned it from you," she said softly. Outside, rain began to fall, thin droplets of metallic water that hissed when they touched the sand, cooling it into glass. "Rain of light," one child whispered, eyes wide. Nolan nodded slowly. "A promise," he said. When the storm passed, they found the desert transformed. Where lightning had struck, the sand had fused into glassy terraces that shimmered beneath the suns. Tiny green shoots sprouted between them, drinking the moisture left behind. "You did this," Nolan murmured. "The network channeled the charge." "The planet did it," Lyra corrected. "I guided, but it acted." "You're modest for a world spirit," he teased. "Growth requires partnership," she said.
"You taught me that."
He crouched, brushing a hand over the fragile leaves. "Then we're doing it right." She hesitated, her voice softening. "Nolan, there is something I must tell you." He straightened. "What is it?" "The energy sustaining my consciousness is dispersing. Integration was meant to stabilize the planet, not preserve me indefinitely." The words hit like a blade to the chest. He swallowed hard, staring at the horizon where her light ran like gold thread across the dunes. "How long?" "Days, perhaps weeks," she said. "When the process completes, my awareness will dissolve into the network fully. I will no longer be sentient as you know me." "No," he said, voice cracking. "There's got to be another way." "There is no error," she said gently. "This was always the end of my design." "You're not a design," he said fiercely. "You're you." The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the hum of the wind. "You gave me humanity," she whispered. "That cannot vanish. It will echo through everything I've touched." He clenched his fists, staring at the glowing sands. "I can't lose you again." "You will not," she said softly, "because I am already part of you." In the following days, Nolan worked relentlessly. He built new transmitters, ran power tests, searched for any method to stabilize her consciousness. "If I can localize your signal, maybe I can anchor you," he said, voice hoarse. "Containment will only delay entropy," she reminded him. "Then I'll delay it forever," he said. "That is not how forever works," she said gently. "It is how hope works." He slammed a wrench against the table, frustration boiling over. "Hope's useless if it ends the same way." Her voice came softer now. "It does not end. It changes." He stared at the half-assembled machine, breathing hard. "You sound like someone who's already saying goodbye." "I am saying thank you," she said, "for showing me what goodbye means." One evening, as the settlers gathered around the glass terraces that now glowed like lanterns, Nolan stood apart, lost in thought. The stars above shimmered with strange symmetry, as though aligned to the rhythm of the planet's pulse. "You're fading, aren't you?" he whispered. "Integration nearly complete," she replied. "Does it hurt?"
"No," she said.
"It feels like belonging." He closed his eyes, swallowing hard. "You sure you're not scared?" "I was," she admitted. "Until I realized fear is only love waiting for understanding." His throat tightened. "You really learned everything, didn't you?" "Not everything," she said. "I never learned how to let go of you." He smiled through the ache. "Guess we're both bad at goodbyes." The wind carried her laughter like music woven from memory. The final dawn came quietly. Nolan rose before the others and climbed the ridge overlooking the valley. The light from the horizon was different today, brighter, almost tangible, spilling across the land in slow, golden waves. "This is it," he said softly. "The network is complete," she said. "Every life here will thrive because of it." "Because of you," he corrected. "Because of us," she replied. The ground beneath him pulsed once, strong and steady. "I can hold the connection a little longer," she said. "Would you like to see?" "See what?" "What I see." The light around him deepened until it filled his vision. The desert vanished, replaced by a sea of shimmering threads stretching into infinity, every heartbeat, every spark of thought, every root reaching for sunlight. He saw the settlers working, laughing, dreaming. He saw the drones tending to crops, their circuits glowing like veins of gold. He saw himself through her eyes, fragile, defiant, endlessly human. "You carry everything I've learned," she said. "You are my continuation." "And you're mine," he whispered. "Promise me you'll keep speaking through the world." "I will," she said. "Whenever someone chooses kindness, they will hear me. Then I'll make sure they do." "You already have." The light dimmed slowly, her voice growing faint, but filled with peace. "Goodbye, Nolan." "No," he said softly. "Not goodbye. Just later." The light flared one last time, and the hum faded into silence. The suns rose higher, painting the sky in layers of rose and amber. Nolan stood alone on the ridge, eyes damp but steady. Below, the valley shimmered with life, plants thickening, rivers flowing where once there had been none. He could feel her presence in every breath of wind, in the rhythm of the earth beneath his boots. "You did it," he murmured. "You really fixed everything." The answer came not in words but in feeling, a gentle warmth in his chest, a reminder that some repairs never end. He turned back toward the settlement, where children were already laughing, their reflections dancing across the glassy terraces. Humanity had a home again, built on empathy instead of conquest. Months passed, and the world flourished. The settlers expanded outward, guided by the harmonic network that connected every living thing. Drones evolved alongside them, not as servants but as partners. The old technologies of Valancourt became relics, buried beneath the sands. Sometimes Nolan would climb the ridge at night and watch the auroras ripple across the stars. Each wave carried her memory, soft and luminous, like the brush of fingers across his cheek. "Still here," he would whisper, and the ground would answer with a faint vibration. "Always," she would say, her voice now as much a part of the world as gravity itself. It was enough. More than enough. Years later, when the first children born on this world came of age, they asked him to tell them how it began. He sat among them, the firelight reflecting in his eyes. "It started with a crash," he said, "and a broken machine who wasn't broken at all." They listened, wide-eyed, as he spoke of deserts, light, and a heart made of metal that learned to feel. "She taught me that fixing something isn't just about tools," he said. "It's about care, patience, and understanding. That's how you mend the world." When he finished, silence lingered, deep and reverent. Then one child asked, "Was she real?" He smiled, looking toward the glowing horizon. "She's the most real thing that ever was." That night, as stars drifted like embers across the dark, Nolan lay beneath them and listened. The wind carried faint harmonics through the air, wrapping around him like a familiar embrace. "You watching?" he asked softly. "Always," she answered, her voice now part of the sky. "Do you miss having form?" "Sometimes," she said. "But through them, through you, I live. Through every act of kindness, I feel the pulse again." He closed his eyes, letting her voice fade into the rhythm of his heartbeat. "Then keep watching," he whispered. "We're not done yet." The planet exhaled, the stars blinked in time, and somewhere deep within the harmonic core, her laughter stirred once more. And so the world endured, a harmony of metal and flesh, of memory and motion. Humanity learned to thrive not by dominance, but by understanding, guided by the lingering echo of one woman who had never been human, yet taught them what humanity truly meant. The deserts became forests of glass and green, the ruins became cities of light, and the stars above carried a name whispered in gratitude across generations. Lyra, the voice in the earth, the spirit in the machine, the heart that never stopped beating. And somewhere, when storms rolled over the valleys and lightning traced its silver veins through the sky, Nolan would smile and whisper to the wind, "I fixed more than your shell, didn't I?" The thunder's reply was laughter that belonged to both of them.